I've been a music lover since I was very young. As a guitarist, I've listened to any genre with guitars, whether death metal or folk or blues or classical guitar. And I've never listened to a huge amount of classical music until the last few years. The exception would be the romantic pianists like Liszt, Debussy, Chopin. They would often be regular listens for me. Maybe it's something about the way the piano can express so much of solitude or an individual's emotions with its range, with its dynamics. But until the last few years, I hadn't really expanded my horizons at all. But since listening to the great symphonists, Mahler, Beethoven, Sibelius, and so on, I've become interested in how the piano concerto developed and what that might tell us about the changing economy of Europe. And this is going to be an exercise in what some might see as vulgar Marxism. I'm going to try and describe how I think the development of capitalism led to changes in the apparently unrelated sphere of music. And maybe you will think this is stupid or unconvincing, feel free to say, but maybe it will be illuminating in some sense, or at least give further food for thought. So, with the piano, with the piano concerto, what interests me is the interplay between that instrument and the orchestra around it, and what that perhaps suggests about the time. So it's been said that with Mozart's piano concertos, the piano and orchestra are roughly in harmony with each other. They're working together, as with what we might call the ordered, rational world of the 18th century. The music of the time reflected that in some sense, gave a sense that there is this pattern that fits very neatly together to the universe, that if the piano is the individual bourgeois character or aristocrat, that he can mesh very well within this universe. And with Beethoven, obviously people would point to his third symphony as being the first romantic symphony. It was inspired initially by the figure of Napoleon, whom Beethoven was very enamoured with, but he grew very disillusioned with once he realised what Napoleon's ambitions were in conquering Europe, and he changed the name of the symphony entirely. But I think this romantic revolution, as it were, this change from music being maybe a reflection or emanation of this orderly, harmonious view of the universe and society, could be described as a change to a focus on the individual, of his passionate Faustian endeavours, of his standing up in the face of the world to make something of himself, as the industrial bourgeoisie were increasingly to do over the 19th century. And this, from what I gather, can be seen in Beethoven's fourth piano concerto, that there's a way in which the piano and the orchestra are almost at loggerheads, almost in battle, in struggle, in a way that hadn't been the case before. There's certainly a lot of beauty in Beethoven's piano concertos, particularly the slow movement of the fifth, can move me to tears now. But the sense of struggle, of the individual's determination to overcome the world and assert himself, I think is there. Brahms's piano concertos are wonderful. And with Brahms, although his symphonies I can appreciate, to me, it's more anything that he does with the piano that really moves me. And his concertos, but particularly his late solo piano works, continue this sense of the individual, finding his place in the world, finding maybe a place to withdraw into. It's very much evening music with his later solo piano works, finding his haven in a heartless world, as Christopher Lasch would put it. But the last piano concertos, the last composer I want to discuss is a fair bit later, Bela Bartok, the Hungarian composer. And Bartok, of course, was around at the time of Schoenberg's modern music revolution, where Schoenberg decided he just had to move on to a new mode of tonality, of using all 12 tones to really express the confusion, the disorientation that the modern world had created, not least with the First World War. And I think with 12-tone music, with the Second Viennese school of Schoenberg, Berg, and Webern, it was an approach that they could only really do in fairly short works. I don't think you could stand to listen to 12-tone music for that much longer than a few minutes, maybe. And Bartok, while he used incredibly innovative approaches to harmony, to chromaticism, he didn't abandon more tonal sounds altogether. And the Piano Concerto No. 1 is a fantastic place to hear something truly astounding, truly breathtaking in its wildness, in its use of polyrhythms, strange time signatures, often atonality, but still coheres in a way that's roughly familiar for the traditional piano concerto form. And here, I think we hear the piano, if the piano represents the individual in the modern world, not in harmony with it, not in a sort of creative tension with it, but almost as part of the chaos, as swept along, as sort of flailing out amidst these wild sounds, this disorientation. Even in the second movement, which is very slow, very creepy, like the dark back alleys of New York at night or something, with steam coming out of the manhole covers. There's this incredible crawling motion. There's clearly no sense of victory or overcoming, but a sort of wallowing in this seedy world. So you could say Bartok represents the ultimate end, I suppose, maybe, of the concerto in that sense, of the sense that have possibilities been exhausted in many ways for Bourgeois. It's interesting that his third concerto, composed not long before he died, makes a return to more traditional sounds and forms. The slow movement is marked as Adagio Religioso, and certainly sounds like, well, I can imagine him lying back in his hospital bed, sort of peacefully accepting his fate, maybe mildly questioning the world, not receiving a particular answer as such, but having made some kind of peace with it. And maybe in these confusing and difficult times, that's all we can hope for as well.